And welcome back everyone. Today we are going to construct these scales all in C. Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian and Locrian. To do that, I have indicated the semitone step position. What I recommend you to do is, if you want to create a mode, may it be Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian and so on, just notate all the notes from the starting note to the finish note without any accidentals whatsoever. It could be C to C, it can be G to G, F to F, doesn't matter. No accidentals. Then indicate the semitone positions. For Ionian that's 3, 4, 7, 8. For Dorian 2, 3, 6, 7 and so on. In the next step you just check if the whole tone and semitone positions match. If they don't match, we work with accidentals. We already know that this is C Ionian. We already know that from the last tutorial. So if we check with the little keyboard here, we see that the whole tone step and semitone position for C Ionian is already in place. So that's all fine. Now let's create the mode of C Dorian. We need semitone steps between 2 and 3 and 6 and 7. The rest of the steps need to be whole tone steps. So let's check again. Between C and D we find a whole tone step. Between 2 and 3 we need a semitone step. So what do? We can't do anything about this D because otherwise this relationship will not be a whole tone step anymore. But in order to get a semitone step, we can lower or flatten the E with a flat. Let's keep going. From 3 to 4 we need a whole tone step and we get a whole tone step. 1, 2 semitone steps. So that's fine. From F to G we need a whole tone step. F to G is a whole tone step. From G to A we need a whole tone step. From G to A is a whole tone step. Now from tone 6 to 7 we need a semitone step. But as you can see we have a whole tone step. Again, we can't do anything about the A, otherwise this step will not be a whole tone step anymore. But we can lower the B to a B flat, and this gives us the semitone step. Perfect. Between 7 and 8 we need our whole tone step, and we get our whole tone step. In other words, this scale is C Dorian. Now let's create a C Phrygian scale. Semitone steps are between tone 1 and 2 and tone 5 and 6. The other steps need to be whole tone steps. From C to D we have naturally a whole tone. We need a semitone, and the idea is now to lower the D. In this case we get our semitone step. Perfect. Now between D flat and E we get an augmented second. If you're not sure what an augmented second is, just go back to a previous tutorial dealing with the intervals. D flat to E is an augmented second, but we need a major second. D flat to E is an augmented second, but we need a major second or a whole tone. The idea is obviously to bring down the E. If I bring down the E to E flat, I get the whole tone that we need. Between tone 3 and 4 we need a whole tone, and we can see it's a whole tone between E flat and F. Between F and G I need another whole tone, and we are getting a whole tone here. Between 5 and 6 I need a semitone, but we have a whole tone. In this case we lower the A. Again, we can't do anything about the G, otherwise we get a semitone step here. Now between A flat and B, again we get an augmented second, therefore we need to lower the B. There we go. And now we're fine. This is a whole tone. Between 7 and 8 we need a whole tone, and B flat to C is a whole tone. So we are fine. This scale is C Phrygian. Let's create C Lydian. The semitone steps for Lydian are between tone 4 and 5 and tone 7 and 8. Between tone 1 and 2 we need a whole tone, and we get a whole tone. Between tone 2 and 3 we need a whole tone, and we get a whole tone. Between tone 3 and 4 we need a whole tone, but we get a semitone. In this case we need to higher or sharpen the F. If we sharpen the F, we get the desired whole tone step. Perfect. Between tone 4 and 5 we need a semitone step, and we get a semitone step. Between tone 5 and 6 we need a whole tone step, and we get a whole tone step. Perfect. Between tone 6 and 7 we need a whole tone step. Let's check. It is a whole tone step. And between 7 and 8 we need a semitone step, and we get a semitone step. Perfect. Let's move on to Mixolydian. Mixolydian has the semitone steps between 3 and 4 and 6 and 7. Between C and D we find a whole tone. This is what we need. Between tone 2 and 3, D and E, we find also a whole tone. That's what we need. Between tone 3 and 4 we need a semitone, and we get a semitone. Between tone 4 and 5 we need a whole tone, and we get a whole tone. Between tone 5 and 6 we need a whole tone, and we get a whole tone. Between tone 6 and 7 we need to lower the B, and now we get a semitone. Perfect. Between 7 and 8 we need a whole tone, and we just created a whole tone. So this is our C Mixolydian scale. Let's move on to Aeolian or natural minor. The semitone steps in Aeolian are between tone 2 and 3 and tone 5 and 6. From 1 to 2 we get a whole tone. That's what we need. Between tone 2 and 3 we get a whole tone, but we need a semitone. In this case we just have to lower the E to an E flat. There we go. Between tone 3 and 4 we need a whole tone, and that's exactly what we get. Between tone 4 and 5 we need a whole tone, and that's what we get. Between tone 5 and 6 we need a semitone, however we get a whole tone. In this case we need to lower the A or flatten the A. So now that's fine, that's a semitone. Between A flat and B we are getting an augmented second, so we need to smallen the interval to a major second or a whole tone step. All we need to do is lowering the B to a B flat. And here we go with our whole tone step. Between tone 7 and 8 we need a whole tone step, and that's exactly what we created. This scale now is C Aeolian. And last but not least, Locrian. Between tone 1 and 2 we need a semitone step, but we get a whole tone step. In this case we need to lower the D to a D flat. Between D flat and E we are getting an augmented second now, as you can see, but we need a whole tone or a major second. So that means we need to lower the E to an E flat. And now we get our desired whole tone step. Between tone 3 and 4 we need a whole tone step, and that's what we get. E flat to F is a whole tone step. Between tone 4 and 5 we need a semitone step, so the G needs to become a G flat. Between tone 5 and 6 we need another whole tone step, but we get an augmented second. In this case we need to flatten the A. Now it's fine, now we are having a whole tone step or major second. Between A flat and B, again we find 1, 2, 3 semitone steps, which in this case is an augmented second. That means we need to flatten the B. Now it's fine, now we are having a whole tone or a major second. Between tone 7 and 8 we need a whole tone, and that's exactly what we get. So this scale is C Locrian. So to create modes, all you need to do is to notate the starting note and the finishing note. Then just fill up the scale without any accidentals, mark the semitone steps, and you know the other steps need to be whole tones. And then just check with your little keyboard what you get, and in case the notes don't form the desired step, you need to alter the notes with the accidentals. And in this way you are able to create any mode on any note.